Good morning, folks. I believe I know many of you are me. I'm Tomer Peterson. I'm the Deputy Director at Grantmakers in the Arts during my day job, but I'm actually up here on the stage at your conference this morning as a company member of American Records Theater in New York City. And with me is KJ Sanchez, who's the CEO and president of American Records. And last year, we were contacted by Marita from Americans for the Arts, and they commissioned a short play from us to investigate the idea of elitism in the arts that was presented at GIA in a session. We got such a favorable response from many of you that we came back and talked to GIA, since equity was the theme for this year's conference, about doing a piece as a plenary presentation. And my brave executive director and my brave board and our brave conference committee went along with this idea. The work we do at American Records, some people call documentary theater. The plays are based on interviews that we do either around a particular idea or a concept, as the piece you're going to see this morning. Sometimes they're around other kinds of stories. And after transcribing and working with these interviews, we then develop a script, which is ultimately a work of fiction that's based on fact. And many people in the room were interviewed for this piece today. And maybe you'll recognize yourselves on stage, maybe you won't. They go through quite a process here. KJ and I both did interviews live and a number by telephone in the development of this piece. And it is really astounding, how can I say this, the authenticity of the stories and the courage that people have in really sort of opening up to you in the interview process. There was one interview I did that you won't hear in the play this morning, where the gentleman was talking about equity, and he said, well, he says, Tomer, you know, there's one thing that's affected me. He says, you probably don't know I'm a convicted felon. He says, I have 2 felonies, one for assault and one for narcotics. He says, and this has followed me through my professional career. And I was sitting there just with my mouth wide open, like, oh, well, thank you for telling me this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this fact. But people were very generous and very courageous in talking about the subject of equity and sharing their personal stories. And you'll see that here this morning on stage. I'm going to turn this over to KJ, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the company.
Thanks, Tomer. Good morning. So yes, I'm the CEO of American Records. CEO, not artistic director, because we're not a not-for-profit. We're actually a corporation that has no intent on making a profit, but we function as a corporation. American Records' mission is to make work that chronicles our time, work that serves as a bridge between people, and most importantly, work that ignites thought and conversation. Our flagship production is called Reentry, which I co-wrote with Emily Ackerman and directed. And Reentry is based on interviews with Marines returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. And we've been very fortunate over the last 3 years to tour Reentry to 12 different theaters around the country, and as well as universities. We've also performed the play at over 30 military bases and hospitals, both across the country and Army bases in Italy and Germany. And when we go to these military sites, we contract with the Department of Defense. And the play is used as resiliency training for troops returning from deployment. And we follow the performance with a town hall discussion, which I facilitate, ask the Marines, airmen, sailors, and soldiers 2 simple questions. Were there characters in the play that you identified with, and can you speak to those experiences? And if we were to write Reentry Part 2 based on your life, what else would we put in the play? And then we have an amazing conversation with these 600, 900 individuals who've come to see the performance. And then we pass the conversation on to the chaplaincy and mental health workers, so that the conversation that we ignite can continue afterwards. 2 other projects we're working on right now. We premiered a play about an ancient land feud in New Mexico, and our upcoming piece, which is commissioned by Berkeley Rep and Baltimore Center Stage, will be about professional football players. We're interviewing football players about the conflict and inherent tension between the love of the game and what we now are learning about brain injury. So all of these, all of the plays we do is to just start a conversation, and that's what we want to do here with you today. It was very hard to edit the material. We talked to so many amazing people, but we pulled out the bits from these interviews that we thought would be best to spark conversation. So that's what we're here to do this morning. And thank you so very much for having us. Without further ado, thank you.